Mount Tantiss was created for the expanded universe, now Legends, but was made canon. We're going to explore both sides of the facility and discuss what changed and what remained the same. This is the Imperial Remnant. Stand by for briefing. Mount Tantiss was an actual mountain on the planet Wayland. Wayland was an outer rim planet with a vibrant, semi-tropical ecosystem. The planet was settled and used during a time of expansion under the Galactic Republic. It was used as a field hospital during the Mandalorian Wars, and a swoop bite manufacturer, Loshan Industries, set up their headquarters there. An apparent error had all records of the planet removed from astrogation charts and planetary databases, making it an ideal spot for the Galactic Empire to house a massive facility. The Empire wasn't the first to utilize the mountain for secret purposes. A genetic terrorist called Zeta Magnus had a laboratory inside. Magnus was a really unique character. He was an Arcanian, but through genetic manipulation was more of a mutant and didn't fully resemble the near-human species that he was born as. His species has a long history of genetic manipulation that he could draw on. Magnus was part of some Clone Wars era legends that will be covered in a transmission all about Magnus down the line. For the purposes of Mount Tantiss' lore, Magnus swore allegiance to Darth Sidious, opening the compound to the Confederacy of Independent Systems and later the Galactic Empire. The Separatists used the facilities inside of Tantiss to work on various projects, all in line with their war efforts. One of the major ones being creating a unique clone army to battle that of the Grand Army of the Republic. These efforts would be abandoned and lay dormant for years to be resurrected later on. When the Empire rose and took control of the galaxy, Palpatine funneled many resources to the Tantiss project. Engineers began to hollow out the mountain, making room to expand the existing facility greatly and adding additional room for any purpose Palpatine would see fit. The Mynirshi, I'm going to go with, and Sedans, native species to Wayland, joined forces to try and repel the Empire from their planet. These peoples were primitive by Imperial standards and were easily beaten. Those who weren't killed in the struggle were enslaved to work inside the compound. In the early days of Mount Tantiss being used as an Imperial facility, it was primarily a storehouse. Numerous objects and artifacts were housed there. These objects contained pure evil and were often trophies of Imperial conquests. The bottommost level of Tantiss held Palpatine's most prized possessions. They were contained in a massive maze, designed by the most talented architect in the galaxy, Garbo Vedraz. To keep the mysteries of the maze and what it hid a secret, Palpatine personally killed Vedraz and presumably any workers upon the maze's completion. Instead of calling attention to the base with patrolling AT-ATs and a large amount of stormtroopers walking around, Palpatine had hidden automated defenses built inside the facility and left a dark Jedi Guardian inside. He then sealed the mountain to prevent anyone from wandering in. This dark Jedi is only known as the Guardian of Mount Tantiss in the History Hollows. He was powerful in the dark side, but was killed by the clone of Joruus C'baoth, a dark force wielder driven insane. There's some cloudiness with the history here. Many believe the clone C'baoth was the original and only official guardian of Mount Tantiss, and the other dark Jedi he killed was merely an intruder. Maybe not even a Dark Jedi at all. This is substantiated in the Dark Force Rising sourcebook. Some even thought there weren't two Dark Jedi and the fight never took place at all. But the complete Star Wars Encyclopedia from 2008 confirms there were two individuals. In 3 ABY, Darth Vader met Palpatine inside the Tantiss throne room. He brought the severed hand of Luuke Skywalker along with the infamous legacy Skywalker lightsaber. The crazy clone Joruus C'baoth would use the hand to clone a version of Luke Skywalker known as Luke, that's with 2 U's. This clone was driven crazy. There's a well-established history of the Force driving clones crazy in legend. Sorry this feels a little bit all over the place. I'm trying to talk about Tantiss, but so many wild things branch off in different directions. The Clone Wars era clone army that the Separatists were going to make that I said was abandoned to be resurrected later, that's right here. Those early attempts were brought back to life by Grand Admiral Thrawn after Palpatine was defeated at the Battle of Endor. It wasn't long after the Battle of Endor that the Imperial occupation of Wayland ended, Palpatine's creepy secret treasures still inside. Thrawn found 20,000 Spaarti cloning cylinders that were stored in Tantiss during the Clone Wars. He began to clone the genetic materials inside each container to build himself an army and enough crewmen to run his fleet of dreadnoughts. 5 years after Vader would bring the hand of his son to the mountain, a major battle took place that saw the Imperial storehouses destroyed. During this time, Thrawn was the highest-ranking Imperial officer and the most formidable opposition to the struggling New Republic. The Emperor's secret assassin and acolyte, Mara Jade, abandoned her mission to kill Luke Skywalker, and the two worked together to kill the evil clones, Luuke Skywalker with 2 U's, and Joruus, also with 2 U's, C'baoth. Leia, Lando, Han, Chewie, and the smuggler Talon Karrde worked together to destroy the remaining Imperial facilities. After the dust settled, the New Republic sent a group of excavators and archaeologists to Tantiss to dig through the rubble and recover whatever they could. Physical objects as well as intel as to what Palpatine and Thrawn were doing there over the years. This event was called the Mount Tantiss Dig. Along with countless artifacts, many imbued with the dark side of the Force, the archaeologists uncovered technological achievements like Thrawn's dreadnought plans, his progress in cloaking technology, and a lot of information on various cloning projects. They also found that Tantiss was intended to be used as a staging ground for a massive military force. Lucky for the rebellion, this plan was never fully seen to its completion by Palpatine. The New Republic also learned much of the history of the mountain already covered in this transmission. With Palpatine presumed defeated and Thrawn taken care of, Wayland was brought into the fold of the New Republic. The native Mynirshi would end up guarding the ruins of Tantiss, and non-native alien species, the Noghri, set up settlements on the planet. Tantiss was once again used for military purposes during the war with the Yuuzhan Vong. The Vong were an incredibly formative and adaptable species that invaded the primary galaxy we recognize from Star Wars after their own galaxy was destroyed. Their technology and battle methods were a threat for anything the struggling New Republic could throw at them, and the Vong themselves seemed designed to combat Jedi Knights, as they seem to exist outside the living Force, very unique for an organic being. During that brutal war, New Republic intelligence set up a safe house on Tantiss. The overall structure and layout of Mount Tantiss was pieced together over time as the dig progressed. The topmost levels contained a throne room for Palpatine. Just below that was Palpatine's substantial private quarters with its own isolated access. Another private access, only Palpatine could open, was connected to an emergency launch bay that had outside access from the mountain itself. Various studies as well as quarters for those closest to Palpatine came next. Not on any schematics found by the New Republic were a number of treasure vaults scattered around these topmost areas. Under these Palpatine-centric levels was a massive cloning chamber. Military barracks, a medbay, and additional ancillary laboratories were built around the massive chamber. Directly under the cloning chamber were various scientific research stations and base security stations near those. Going further down was a massive hangar bay, the most commonly used entrance and egress of the entire base. Service stations for any ships, as well as everything contained in the base, were nearby. On the other side of the subterranean compound was a massive computer core. This was the largest hollow in the mountain, which says a lot about the importance and the amount of information kept inside. Beneath the hangar bay was a command wing for military personnel and multiple levels of barracks for enlisted non-specialty troops like stormtroopers. Nearby was the primary security station and the attached war room. A detention center was close to these rooms, but deeper in the facility, opposite the detention blocks but very close to the barracks, was the main entrance to the facility other than the hangar bay. It was well hidden and well guarded. Going further down, there was massive power reactors, some storage areas, and beneath absolutely everything, Palpatine's maze. Up until now, everything we've talked about has been legends. In canon, many attributes of Tantiss remain the same, but in a much more concise version. In canon, Mount Tantiss is still located on Wayland. It is also a facility used by the Empire for cloning. There is no history of a mad scientist swearing allegiance to Palpatine, but there are also no contradictions to such things. After the Empire destroyed the cloning facilities on Kamino, used during the Clone Wars, they moved their cloning programs to Tantiss Base, located inside the mountain. The facility was also secret and well guarded. Instead of being used to clone Jedi Knights and creating a crazy version of Luke Skywalker, its primary purpose was Project Necromancer, a project Palpatine gave near unlimited resources to, with the goal of finding a way to make a clone body that could hold a naturally high metachlorian count, without deterioration or driving the mind insane. Mount Tantiss made its debut in the incredible 1991 expanded universe novel Heir to the Empire. It made its canon debut in an episode of the animated series The Bad Batch in 2021. Tantiss was originally created by Timothy Zahn. Zahn has contributed so much of his creativity to Star Wars, not just in the expanded universe, but canon as well. He's a phenomenal writer and knows what makes a good story. Be sure to watch this transmission next for a full history on fan favorite character Mara Jade, also created by Timothy Zahn.